Welcome to Mile High Reefers. I'm Scott Anderson, and I didn't do much to the tank this week, but it was an incredibly exciting week. For those of you who didn't see, Jake Adams of Reef Builders stopped by my house to check out this 210-gallon tank. It was so much fun having Jake over. So I thought for this video, I'd give you guys a little idea of what happened behind the scenes and answer some of the comments that I was seeing in the comments section of that video. So for those of you who don't know who Jake Adams is the editor of Reef Builders, the online blog. It's probably the best blog online for reefing stuff. He's also the face of the Reef Builders YouTube channel. He travels the world, he goes to all the shows. This guy knows reefing better than just about anybody. So it was an honor to have him come over to my house. So here's what happened. If you remember last week's video, I was talking about changing my tank up because I have too much growth. Everything's overgrowing. Well, when Jake heard that, he wanted to come check out my tank before I made changes. He wanted to see what this tank was like in its absolute glory before I started taking stuff out and moving it around, because no matter what I do, it won't look as good for a while. So Jake came over and he was here for about 4 hours, which was a blast. We shot a bunch of video. Some of it you haven't seen yet. There's gonna be a collaboration thing happening. You'll get to see that soon. But it was a lot of fun having him over. Now, I gave him a full tour of my tanks and everything I do, how I keep stuff. But inevitably, the conversation turned to how I'm going to change my tank. Because unfortunately, no matter what, my tank is gonna change. Either I'm gonna decide the direction of how the tank goes, or I'm gonna do nothing to it and it's gonna grow, and the corals are gonna decide the direction that it goes. But right now, I've got quite a bit of coral warfare going on because I have a terrible problem in that my tank is overgrown. I've got too much growth. I know, it's rough, but I'm gonna get through it. So we had a lot of fun discussing how I should change my tank up and make it a little more future-proof. Let's get rid of some stuff, add some stuff, and try to keep what I have, the old school wall look, and still manage it and keep those really cool corals. So that's what a lot of our conversation was around. It was so awesome to have Jake over, somebody who really knows and understands reefing and has seen some of the best reefs out there, to give his input on ways I can upgrade the aquascape of my tank to kind of future-proof it and make it better, because we are at the point where something has to happen to this. Now, my tank is old school. I use an old school AquaSea EV protein skimmer. And this is a little weird for a lot of you, but you gotta remember, I've been reefing for a long time. When I started reefing, injection style skimmers were right up there with the needle wheel. Other than the top end needle wheel skimmers of the day, the injection skimmers really looked like they had a solid chance at taking over the industry. So when I was getting into reefing, I kind of chose to go with the injection style skimmers because I didn't have a grand for a Euro reef skimmer. And really, the injection skimmers looked like the way to go. So for those of you who don't know how an injection style skimmer works, we basically are gonna push a ton of water through a little injection thing, and it's gonna blast water into the vessel down below. You got some baffles down there, and that water is gonna bubble up and create your foam. So it's super simple, and it's reliable like a wood stove. You keep it clean, you keep it adjusted properly, and it will run as long as your pump will run. Now, the downside to the injection style skimmer is efficiency. My EV1000 needs about 25 to 2,700 gallons an hour running through that pump or through that skimmer to make that skimmer work at its maximum efficiency. So it uses a ton of power. Now the theory behind it is You run all of that water through here, you're pushing your full tank's volume through that skimmer multiple times, and it really gives it a good chance to drive out all the organics in the water. And I gotta say, the skimmer works really well. Now, I might consider upgrading in the future, but to be honest, I bought that EV1000 for 200 bucks. Good external needle wheel skimmer for that tank could run me close to $1,000 bucks. So for 200 bucks, and I've already got the pump, it's already on the system, I think I'm gonna stick with it. It's definitely low on my list of stuff to upgrade. So that was pretty cool. The other thing that's a bit controversial about my system is I run a Sandbed in my QT. And Jake gave me crap about this, and this is where it's funny because it's a hobby, right? We all do things different. If everybody does things the same way, we don't get anywhere in this hobby. So I totally understand that I am outside of the box when I run a Sandbed in my QT. But let me make my case, because a lot of you have said the exact same thing about my QT system. So I run a Sandbed in my QT because it gives the wrasses a place to hide. And when I buy a wrasse, I want it to be able to go in and hide. That's important. But the most important reason I do it is because it's biological filtration. So if you guys remember your nitrogen cycle, you need to break ammonia down from ammonia to nitrite to nitrate. And that Sandbed allows me to do that. There are other ways to do it, but I have found a Sandbed in the QT is the most effective way to make this happen. So the idea is I put a fish in there, the tank's already fully cycled, and when I put that fish in, it's not producing ammonia, it's only producing nitrates. Those of you who aren't running biological filtration in your QTs, you know that as soon as you put that fish in, it starts producing ammonia, and you gotta do a water change every day or two. Now, I have a busy schedule. I work day shifts, I work night shifts, I work 12-hour shifts, and there are days when I come home when I do not want to do a water change on my system. This takes my water changes down from daily to weekly, which is such a huge thing. The other thing is, I don't care how many water changes you do, ammonia is a stressor for your fish. So you go buy a fish, you buy it, it's already stressed out, you put it in, it starts producing ammonia, and now you're stressing it out more because you're producing ammonia. There are downsides. First, it traps detritus, not a huge deal for a QT. A lot of you say it absorbs medication. Well, as far as medication goes, mainly I dose cupramine, which is a copper-based medication. Learn this before you dose it. It's very important because it will kill a lot of things, and it's not really good for fish, but it is your best way to get rid of parasites like ick and marine velvet. Now, I've been using this quarantine setup for many years. I've been dosing cupramine for many years, and I've never seen the Sandbed absorb that copper. So I dose it, I test. Now, that is key to the way I run my quarantine system. When I dose cupramine, I test my copper levels, and then I'll continue to test my copper levels to make sure they maintain, and they always have. I've never seen. I also test for ammonia just to make sure nothing's happened to my biological, but I've never seen anything happen to the ammonia while running cupramine. A lot of people say that cupramine will kill your biological cycle producing ammonia. Never seen it happen. I've been doing this for many years. So that's why I run a Sandbed. So I'm not saying everybody should do this. I'm just showing you guys what I do because it's a really cool way, in my opinion, to do it. But I admit it's a bit odd and most people don't do it that way. So the other thing that I don't do a lot of is I don't dose a lot for this tank. I mainly rely on my calcium reactor to keep this thing where I want it. So the theory behind the calcium reactor is I'm gonna melt down aragonite to produce mainly alkalinity, calcium, and the trace elements should be in that aragonite. So it should provide most of what I want. Unfortunately, without doing ICB testing, it's all real theory about how many trace elements are in my tank. So I do use the calcium reactor. Now with the calcium reactor, you have to dose calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium once in a rare while to adjust your calcium and alkalinity levels to where you want it. Now, I don't have to do this very much. In fact, you can see this is my magnesium bottle and it is rock solid. I've had this thing for years. I've gone through 2/3 of it and it's rock solid. I need new stuff. So the calcium and alkalinity is really just an adjustment I make once in a rare while. Mainly, I rely solely on that calcium reactor to do everything. Now, the point that Jake is making is that if you start dosing things like amino acids, that the corals are gonna start to thrive, at which point I'm probably gonna have to start dosing more trace elements so that they can maintain really high health and really high growth. Now, there isn't a great way to get amino acids into the tank other than feeding or through dosing. So I do think Jake is right in that I could gain some color, health, and growth if I would dose the amino acids. So I have ordered some acro power to try out. Jake swears in a week I'll see the difference. So I've ordered some, we'll try it out. I've also bought some trace elements and we'll see how all this works. I'm not sold on dosing, but you know what? I've seen enough people do it that I think it's worth trying the amino acids and the acro power to see really if it's gonna make any difference to my reef or not, or maybe I'll just stick with the calcium reactor. It's a great thing to learn from other reefers. One of the things I love to do is sit back with my friends and debate reefing. It is a blast. So having Jake over was a lot of fun. We sat back, had a few beers, debated reefing, made video. That is a lot of fun in my world. So if you haven't checked out the Reef Builders website, I'm gonna link that down below. Check that out. I'm there daily just because they're always putting out the latest reefing information. If you haven't checked out their YouTube channel, check out the Reef Builders YouTube channel. They've got some of the best videos online right now. So definitely check that out.
Guys, you should have seen Jake Adams' Pokédex. He caught them all except Mr. Mime. Impressive. Huh. So thanks for watching this episode of My Home Reefers. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.